So this video is going to pick up where we left off at the end of part 1 and part 2, where we created a color separation for a print production job, meaning anything except a t-shirt. So this time we're working on part 3 about dealing with the screen printing color separation. So this would be if we were separating a job to actually physically go back to the lab and print, as you have seen in the past, 2 colors onto the same shirt. Now the notes page is open here, so I'm going to try to follow closely along with this so that you can fill in the answers as we go. So the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to change the page size of the document, because we're going to print a shirt which is going to be larger than this 6x4 inch, which would be like a postcard size. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to go to File, and we're going to pull down to where it says Document Setup, which is the answer to that first one. And then we're going to pull over and we're going to choose Edit Artboards. Now that's going to open a couple of dialog options for you so that you can change the size of the job. Now you can simply go up here to the top and you can go to the width and the height. What we're going to change this to is what would be considered tabloid size. You can also click here under Custom and you can choose option tabloid. So you can physically type in 11 inches by 17 inches, or you can choose tabloid, which is going to change the size for you here. Now it changed it to 17 inches wide by 11 instead of 11 by 17, because you have the options of portrait and landscape, and currently landscape is selected because of the size that we have for the postcard. So we're going to change this back to portrait so that your width should be 11 inches wide by 17 inches high or tall. The orientation again should be set to portrait. Okay, so then you're going to click your pointer. We're going to double click the hand tool, which is going to take you back to Fit in Window. And then you will be able to see a larger page size than what you had before. Now at this point, we do not need the appearance panel currently, so I'm just going to drag that back in to the panel selection. And then what we're going to do is start pulling guide rules to be able to align registration marks. So to get a guide rule, we're going to choose our pointer. We're going to put our pointer in the ruler at the top. I'm going to click, hold, and drag. We're going to drag to 2 inches, and then we're going to drag, this is 17, so we'll say 16, 15. So we're going about 2 inches from the top and then 2 inches up from the bottom. All right, then we're going to pull our vertical guides. We're going to pretty much do the same thing. We're going to pull these over to a 2 inch. And then if this is 11, we're going to back it in 9 and 10. So we've basically got a 2 inch margin all the way around the outside edge of the page. Now these margins can be adjusted depending on how large the artwork is. So if you needed to pull these out to say like a 1 inch margin or a 1.5 inch margin, depending on the artwork, that would be fine to do. Okay, now if we're going to set a center vertical guide so that we can make sure that things are aligned, if we know it's an 11 inch, then we're going to pull this to 5.5, which is simply half of 11 inches. So we're taking 11, dividing by 2. Now, in order to lock or unlock guides, you're going to go up to View, and then you're going to pull down to where it says Guides, and then you have options here to hide guides, lock, and unlock. So they are currently locked now, so I just unlocked them. So if you want to lock the guides back, so if they're unlocked, you can move them like so. If you do not want to accidentally move them once you get them into place, you go to View, Guides, choose Lock Guides as an option, and then you can no longer move or edit those guides by mistake. Okay, so now what we're going to do is we're going to create registration marks for all 4 corners. Okay, typically you're going to have them in the 4 corners, and then if you want to add them in the center, you can. Now I do have some registration marks saved onto the server, but 1, you need to learn how to make your own. 2, since most of you are virtual, it's probably a good idea just to make your own since you all do not have access to the server. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to zoom into this top left corner. I'm going to go and make sure that I know what my stroke setting is set to. So currently I have fill set to none, which is what I want. And then I have this set to none on the stroke, which is not what I want because I want to have a stroke color. Now it's very important that you choose this correct color. You are going to choose what is called registration black. Okay, that is located right here. It looks like a little registration mark, and it is called registration black. It is not the default process black. It is not Pantone black. This color separation will not work if you do not have the correct black chosen. So it has to be registration black. So when I choose that, I now have black as my stroke. I'm going to go up. I'm going to choose the ellipse tool. You can make square registration marks, circle registration marks, however you want to do it. And I'm just going to click, hold, and drag. I'm going to press the Option key on my keyboard, which is going to draw from the center out. So I'm putting my crosshair in the center where my guide rules meet, pressing Option on my keyboard. Okay, that would be Alt on a PC. And then I'm holding the Shift key to keep it in proportion. I'm holding Option and Shift, and that allows me to click, hold, and drag from the center out. So I can make sure that this is exactly centered within that guide. Now, there's not a specific size that these have to be. You don't want it huge and large because that's a lot to tape off on a screen. So we're going to make them about like a 0.45 of an inch. I'll let go of the mouse and then my keys. And then I'm going to come over and check the stroke weight. Now this is about a 1 point stroke. I'm going to drop it down maybe to about a 0.75. The thinner the stroke, the more accurate the registration mark will be. Okay. So I would say probably somewhere from a 0.5 to a 0.75 for screen printing. Then I'm going to get my line segment tool. I'm going to hold the Shift key to keep this straight. I'm going to click, hold, and drag a line across there. And then I'm going to let go of my mouse and then my key. I'm going to hold the Shift again. I'm going to draw another one across. Again, I held my Shift key, making sure that it's centered. I just moved my arrow to make sure that that center dot aligns. And then you should be able, when I zoom in, to see the registration mark that I just made. Now, again, these are all selected as registration black. That is super important to make sure that all of your lines are selected the stroke to registration black. Okay, so then what we're going to do is I'm just going to click, hold, and drag around this registration mark. I'm going to go to Object and Group. The shortcut for that is Command G. That way, once I group it, then I can copy and paste this to all the other areas. So one of the questions is how many registration marks are needed. I'm going to double click the hand tool. So you need at least 4. I have worked with 3, but I think it's going to be better if you just go ahead and maybe just do all 6 so that it gives you a center guide plus the corner guides for left and right, vertical and horizontal alignments. Now to duplicate this, I'm going to press and hold the Option key on my keyboard on a Mac, Alt on a PC. And as I click, hold, and drag, the catch is I'll let go of the mouse, then the key. Then I'm going to press Option again, click, hold, and drag. This is duplicating the registration mark. Then another quick shortcut is I can drag around all 3, press, hold, Option, and then I can just duplicate these down, drag those in position. I'm going to use the arrows on my keyboard to make sure that those are completely aligned where they need to be. Now, if I want to hide the guides, I can just simply go to View, Guides, and then pull down to Hide Guides, and you will see the registration marks that I now have on my page. I'm going to go to View, Guides, and Show Guides again. So basically the registration mark should be in the outside edges. It should not get too close to the artwork. It should be in the corners and or the center in order to make sure that your horizontal and your vertical alignments are correct. Okay, the color should be registration black. Now, the next thing says Pantone colors. So we're over here on the handout. So it says, are they identified and where should they be? Okay, so we're going to put these between the registration marks down here at the bottom section of the page, and you do need to know what color Pantones that you used. Now, if you forgot, you can simply go and mouse over. So it's telling me that my green is Pantone number 339 and my orange is Pantone 151. So what I'm going to do is get my text tool. I'm going to come down here. I'm going to drag a text box between those two registration marks, and I'm simply going to type that this is my green equals PMS 339C, which stands for coded. Then I'm going to highlight this text, and I'm actually going to put it in that green color. Now I'm going to make my stroke none and just change that. I forgot to convert that over to the fill. I will make this point size, it's 12 right now. I'll do it at maybe about 14 just so that you can see it a little bit better. And then you don't want it too big because you've got to tape it off. I'm just going to drag that right here in the center. Okay. Then I'm pretty much going to do the same thing this time. We're going to do the orange, click, hold, drag, type orange is going to equal my PMS 151C. I'm going to highlight it. I'm going to put that in my swatch, make sure that my fill is selected and not the stroke this time. And I'm going to choose my Pantone 151. So it has to be exactly the same colors as what's in your image, or this will not work correctly. Okay. Now, it's probably a good idea at this point to save your document if you have not already done so. In this case, I'm going to do a save as because I want to continue to hold my half demo. I'm going to go back to my color separation. I'm going to make a new folder. We're going to call this ColorSepsPt3. I'm going to create a folder, and then I'm going to call this Part 3 Demo. And I'm going to save it into that folder, and I'm saving it as an AI file. All right, when you get this, you're going to leave pretty much everything set to default. You're going to click OK, and you have saved your file. Okay, so let's check the instruction sheet again. So again, we saved the file as a native file. Make sure you use the correct naming conventions or the standards that you want to use. Okay, so now what we're ready to do is to determine, did we make the file or create the file correctly? Is it right before we print the color separation? So what we're going to do is we're going to go to Window, and then we're going to pull down to where it says Separations Preview. So when we do that, you're going to get another panel that's going to open that should allow us to preview what we have done. So if we click that, then we should be able to click the Overprint Preview button. When you put a check mark in there, you notice that it changes so that you now have these little eyeballs and selections here to view your Pantones. Now, obviously, we are not printing a CMYK, which means process art, because we are using Pantones, which mean spot. And you can see right here where it has an option to show use spot colors only. So it's only showing the ones that are used within the file, if in case you did have more in your swatches panel. So you can immediately turn the CMYK off. Now, at this point, if I turn this off, you can see that it's only going to show everything that is the Pantone green 339. And it even changes, I'm going to turn off or just hide our guide so you can see, it even changes the registration marks to the same color as the artwork, which is why you had to make sure that that registration black was selected correctly. So then we're going to turn the orange on. This time we're going to turn the eyeball off on the green. And you can now see that it's giving you a preview of everything on this page that should be orange, including the registration marks, so that when you print both of these, you will align the registration marks on top of one another in order to adequately line up or register the color so there's no gaps or any kind of like printed sideways or anything that's incorrect or crooked or overlapping that should not be. Okay, so that's the window separation preview to show you how to preview if your color separation is correct. Okay, so now let's move on to the actual printing, which is going to follow very similar to what we did before. So I'm going to drag our separations preview over. This time, we're going to go again to File, Print as an option. And again, in the classroom, you would print to the black and white printer. Remember, I told you never print your files to a color printer unless you're doing a color proof. But if you're printing a color separation, it needs to be in black and white. So if we were to actually print it, we would choose the black and white printer. Okay, in this scenario, since we are going to only create the postscript, then we're going to choose the postscript option, which will give us a digital soft proof. Now, a couple of changes need to be made here that are different from part 1 and part 2. So the first thing is that the media size has to change, because remember, we're printing this on a tabloid size paper instead of the standard US letter. So it's not allowing us to change the size. So we are going to have to fit to page. Okay, so under the scaling, and the reason is because our printer will not physically print 11 by 17. It will not print a tabloid size. So because it's registering those printers, and most of your printers at home probably would not have a tabloid size option either. So because you don't have a tabloid size, the largest we can print is legal, then we're going to leave our paper set to US letter. We're going to scale to fit to page. So this time you're going to scale to fit to page in order to get it to shrink it down. And then what we will do is enlarge it back onto that size paper onto another machine in the classroom. Now, this time we do not want marks and bleeds. So we want to deselect and take all of that off because we're doing it manually. We're putting our registration marks because these are larger. If you have these, they're too small to see on the screen. So we're deselecting. So the output, when we go, you still should be choosing separations host-based. You still should have the process colors deselected, and you should have your Pantone colors selected so that your file should basically look like this. And it says it's scaling it to like a 61%. Okay, so then we're going to go and click Save again. We're going to I'm going to leave it to the file name I have here, but it would be, if you were saving, actually, I'll just go ahead and change it. It should be your last name underscore first initial underscore, and then you can call this screen print, ColorSep, if you want to call it that. And then this is it's your PS file. Okay, so it's your postscript, and I'm going to save it into this same folder. You would save it into your graphic design folder. Now, once you have saved it, we're going to go preview. So we're going to go find where we just saved the file. All right, and then we're going to double click and open it. So this should look just like the preview option, but it should be solid black, which is the purest color of density of the ink. So you can see that this tells me that this is my green plate. When I scroll up, this is my orange plate. So that's what your color separation look like, scaled to fit to page so that you can view your registration marks, and then everything can be enlarged back for the vellum that we will use to print in preparation for preparing the screens for production. Okay, so I'm double checking the notes, convert to color, separated. Okay, so then at this point, if you do want to save it back out as a PDF, you can simply go to File. You can go to Export as a PDF if you're viewing it in a preview, and then you can go ahead. You shouldn't have two .pdfs. So we're going to take off that one. You should only have one .pdf for your file extension. I'm going to go back and save this into that same folder, or you can save it to your graphic design folder and then save that as a PDF option as well. So you probably want a PDF and a postscript. And then you also want to go back here before you're done, and you want to go ahead and do a file save as on this file. And you want to save this file out as a PDF as well for your soft proof. So if I were giving this to a client, I would probably put the client's name. In this case, you're putting your name. And then I would call this like a ColorSep soft proof. Okay. Save it as a PDF. And that way you get the full color version in addition to, so you get the full color version plus your color separated one. So this would be a PDF with the ColorSep soft proof. This would be your PDF with the color actually separated into a color separation. Okay. And then these files, this file will be used to actually physically produce the vellum to be able to burn the screens so that you have two screens, one screen for each color. This file that you just made, which was the PDF proof, this would be the proof that you would send to your client in order to see, or your printer in order to see what the colors would actually look like as a combined composite. This is considered a composite, and the other one is a color separated proof. And that is how you create a color separation for screen printing to be able to produce it onto t-shirts.